Welcome back, comic book fans. It's Rusty again with Collector Auctions, and here I am finally back in Maryland after a great trip to Heroes Con. And I hope you guys got a chance to watch my recap video. I put that out the day after I left Charlotte, hoping that you guys can get a good sense about my experience there at the con. But if you watch that video, you know that all I did was get books signed. I got a ton of comics signed. I didn't buy a single comic book. So what do I got for you for show and tell is a lot of signed books. And I went through and I was looking at all the footage, and I decided what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through all the artists that I got books signed by, kind of go through it sequentially. I'm going to start with Chris Claremont, who was the very first signer that I went to on Friday morning, and then we'll work our way through the rest of the artists, and then I will break it down into smaller groups. Today, it's only going to be Chris Claremont because I got a lot of books signed. In the next episode, it's going to be John Romita Jr., and that one's going to be a little out of order, even though he was the second person that I got books signed by. He was also the last person because I did go to the greet and meet late on Sunday night. It was the last thing of the con, and I decided just to do one big John Romita Jr. episode. So after that, we're going to have smaller groups, probably 4 or 5, 6, depending on how many books I got signed by the certain number of artists. But I'll be putting out these episodes over the next few weeks, and you can get a chance to watch them. You can see some of my interaction with the artist. I'm not going to do much of a soundtrack. Normally, you would have a music soundtrack running behind it, but I'm just going to let the sound of the show kind of play through. You can see and hear some of our conversations, and after I'm done showing you some of the video from the show itself, we'll come back and we'll do a show and tell for those artists in that episode. But like I said, we're going to start with Chris Claremont, who was my #1 goal person to get on day one. And not necessarily, it didn't have to be him. It could have been Scotty Young. It could have been Jenny Frison. But I decided to get Chris Claremont first, kind of knock it out of the way. And I'm kind of glad I did because his line is always super long. And when I went in on day one, I was in the VIP group. That meant that I got to go in an hour earlier than the regular public. But because I had this giant cart with multiple boxes of comics, it slowed me down getting into the show. I had to go down the elevator instead of the escalator where I could normally just pick up a regular small cart. And I had to wait on an elevator, and it put me probably anywhere from 5 to 10 people further back in line. And if you guys have ever gotten Chris Claremont before, he's a talker. He loves talking. He loves taking forever. And when you watch some of the video, you're going to see that. In fact, his handler, who I later learned was his son, I don't have that confirmed, but there's a little funny scene that I kind of laugh at during the video. I was laughing at when I was watching all the video that I shot, and I'm going, I got to put that in there. It's a little funny talking about how much he likes to talk and how that affects everybody in line. But you guys can sit back and enjoy some of that footage. But guys, that's it. I mean, honestly, sit back, enjoy the footage with the Chris Claremont signing, and then we'll come back and we'll do a show and tell with all the books I did pick up. So hang on, and I'll be right back.
So that I don't know anything about. Yeah.
Broken it into 4 blocks of 20 odd.
Okay.
And there's still 40.
Everybody thought I was a little OCD putting everything in window bags like this, but
Yeah, I always cut the whole face out. But with the actors, you have to do smaller windows because the actors aren't like these guys. They'll sign the whole book.
The problem is that with me is that with bags like this, it catches, it occasionally screws up the signature. And case in point.
oh, sorry about that. Yeah.
No, see, my feeling is sign on the title because it's always, invariably, it's white space. But most importantly, I don't see any problem covering the title. People buy the book for the art.
Yeah, I wish more people thought like you because I like the way you do it.
I think last year I was talking with Ralph Macchio, and he said that he was like debating. He's like, where should we sign on here? He was really kind of doing a thorough job, wanting to make sure it was in the right spot and everything.
One book I found that pretty consistently on X-Force 11, where Deadpool's kicking out his leg, whether it's Fabian Vincenza, Rob Liefeld, or anybody else, if somebody else already signed that leg and took their spot, they're unhappy about it.
Yeah, I mean, Arthur will sign on. Everybody has a preference. $2,300,000,000.
And counting.
Okay, if you guys want a real giggle, when I was younger, so much younger than today, back in the days when we had to deal with the war in Vietnam, the space program, and the Great Society. 3 really cool projects. The federal budget that year was, ready, wait for it, $987 million.
You know, you see how there's 2 pillars?
There-
There's the near pillar, and then there's
Are you telling me to shut up and sign?
I am saying that the lovely people waiting in line stretch back to the 2nd pillar.
Okay.
And I will let you connect those dots. Because I would never want to impose or impinge.
Wait a minute. Sensing something.
But
What are you saying?
the joke of that is in the Everett Dirksen, the Republican leader of the Senate, response to that budget was $1 billion here, $1 billion there. Sooner or later, you're talking real money.
He had no idea where we were going.
So,
with the
anybody
budget.
know what comes after trillion? I sure as hell don't. What?
Quadrillion.
Quadrillion?
Quadrillion, right?
That's boring. There's got to be
Yeah,
a better
that's 4,
name.
quintillion is 5.
Quintillion. Now, see, quintillion would be good.
Zillion was always.
Well, that's from that's Scrooge McDuck.
Well, he's an authority on money, you see.
And Richie Rich.
I am, putting certain people in the same category as Scrooge McDuck seems so appropriate.
Most people would
Even
injure
though-
themselves if they dived into a bathtub full of gold.
What the?
Facsimile,
Dickens.
David Nakayama cover.
No, I understand. It's just, I look at that image of,
Well, I talked with Michael Golden, and he said he wished Nakayama had drawn her like she looks like in the book.
well, that was my thought. It's like, she looks, is Michael here?
Yeah, he's here.
Oh, I'll have to go bug him. Ending up with artists doing facsimile sketches or pieces of art. And in and of themselves, they're quite nice. But I mean, the rogue in the book is scary.
Yeah, very. She always seemed a little bit older the way Michael Golden always drew her, too.
Well, it's because Michael designed her without. He didn't realize, or maybe I didn't explain it, that she's a kid. So he went with his own instincts, which is quite a lovely character, but she comes across as much older. And the second problem was the artist who did the original Dazzler series, where she goes up against Rogue, assumed that white hair on the side means she's old. So he drew her as like a 50,
Oh, now-
almost a 50-year-old person.
Chris, thank you so much. I appreciate everything.
Are you all set?
Yep, got everything now.
Which is like,
Thank you for that.
All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed some of that footage. It was really funny watching his son, the handler, talk to him about you might want to actually speed up a little bit. There's a lot of people here. I laughed so hard at that. Well, I hope you enjoyed it, but let's get into it. Let me talk to you about a little bit about it first. So one of the things that they were doing was that I noticed that the show was normally all the shows in years past, even if you were paying for it, there always seemed to be sort of a limit of how many books you could do. But at this show, what I did notice was you're paying for autographs. They didn't care how many books you did. They did ask, however, that if you had X amount to break it down, you would, for example, I gave Chris Claremont like 32 books. And they asked me to break that down into 2 sets of 16. That way, I could get 16 of them done, and then 3, 4, maybe 5 people with smaller amounts could go and get their books done, and then I would just jump back in. I'd be standing right there at the end of the line anyway, and get the rest of my books. And you may be going, oh my God, 32 books. Well, that was nothing compared to the guy that was about 4 or 5 people in front of me. He literally had a short box, at least a short box of Claremont books getting signed, and he had to break his down into 4 different sections to let people go through, and it was quite a show. But that was what I noticed at the entire show. The same thing played out at other times. Jenny Frison, for example, I had a lot of books, and the guy in front of me had a store, and he had over 70 books, and he had to break them down into small batches to let other people go through. Well, I kind of did the same thing with Jenny Frison that I just did with Chris Claremont. Well, I finally got through everything, but let's just get into the books, and I will show you everything I got signed. And the other thing I kind of want to tell you that I would have probably preferred to have had these books cleaned and pressed prior to going to the show. Prices for Chris Claremont were $15 for an autograph. I believe it was $25 if you were getting them signed and witnessed by CGC. And that's actually a pretty good deal, because as the way it is right now, any of the books that I want to send into the CGC right there, I'm going to be paying $20 for a verification of Chris Claremont's signature on these books. So already now I'm going to be having to pay a little bit more to get these books graded and verified. But again, I did not have time prior to the show to get these books cleaned and pressed. And it's something I'm going to do on my own. I'll do it at my own pace. But one thing I will say is that every one of these books are fairly high grade. There's a couple that are slightly lower, but I'll explain why I got those signed. But let's just get right into it. Starting off with X-Men 101. This is a very nice copy that I picked up from Infinity Comics. This is a book that you guys have not seen because I haven't even done the video from one of my comic book haul videos, my mail call videos. I didn't even have time to do that episode yet, and I wanted to go ahead and pull this book. It's a very nice book, and I want to talk about this a little bit, about why am I getting so many books signed by Chris Claremont and getting them graded. Well, I'm adding value to these books, and I've talked about this before in the past, but Chris Claremont is a great example of somebody that you can get a signature on, and you can add a lot of value to that book. It's a very, any of the and I'm talking about the X-Men for the most part, especially anything from the John Byrne and Dave Cochran part of the run, the early run. Well, this is a good example, and this is not to say that it's going to be the same percentage across the board, and this is the only one I'm going to give you prices on. But let's say I wanted to get this graded. Now, I haven't really said that this is going to be an 8.5. Honestly, I think I could do a little bit better than that. I think it's going to be in the 9s. But I'm going to use 8.5 as a good example of this. This book right here, as a blue label 8.5, most recently sold for $500. But a yellow label with a Chris Claremont signature on it, 8.5, just sold for $826. So that is a 65.2% increase over that. And that is why I want my X-Bidden books signed. I mean, some of these I may end up keeping for my PC, but a lot of these I've already got in my PC and graded as well. So I may end up selling a lot of these, but by putting a Claremont signature on them, you do really add value. And that's not true about every artist out there. And I'm not doing this completely as a financial gain type of thing, but I am looking at this stack, especially a lot of these X-Men. As I said, I've got them already graded. I've got my 9.6, in some cases 9.8s in my PC. I don't necessarily need to have them signed, but in terms of resale, that's completely my mind thought right there, is that I'm going to add that value and really put a premium on these books. So this is the only one I'm going to do a price breakdown on this, and 65% is not indicative of every grade level or every book. It's just the case in this example. But in most cases, you're going to definitely have that significant of a increase by adding that signature. So let's get on with it. Show and tell. What did I say? We got 101. We've got the first John Byrne book, 108. We've got 109, the first appearance of the Guardian, and the first indication of Alpha Flight right there. We've got 112, was part of that Magneto storyline. One of my favorite books, because you've got this George Perez cover, you got John Byrne, Terry Olson artwork on the inside. You couldn't get a better art team for the entire book right here. I'm going to put some of these down. We've got 117, which is probably one of my least favorite Dave Cochran covers, but it is a great John Byrne art on the inside. And we've got a really nice copy of 129 right here. This I picked up from one of the local shows before I came down to this, and I got it. I thought it was a really good price on it, and I had a good chance to look at this book, and they didn't think it was going to grade out more than a 7.0. I couldn't really find the defects in this book, so I have high hopes for this book. We'll do a video on that and see how right or wrong I was on picking this book up. But I went ahead, again, by adding that signature, even if it's a lower grade, will increase that value. We got issue 132. We're continuing with the Dark Phoenix run. We got a copy of 133. This one is one of my lesser copies. I actually have a 9.8 in the PC that is signed by Claremont that I've got a hold of right now. If I honestly, I would sell it if I could get a 9.6 on something like this. Be honest, I like having a 9.6 collection because it's such a premium on those 9.8s and some of the bigger keys in this John Byrne X-Men run that honestly, it's pretty valuable. I can use that to actually pay for a lot of the hobby. And let's see, I've got 134 right there. First appearance of Dark Phoenix. And then, speaking of Dark Phoenix, I ended up I've had 3 really nice copies of 135. I had a couple directs, and I had a beautiful newsstand right there. And again, I'm not getting into values, and especially the news between newsstand and direct. Not even going to go down that road yet, but I know these are really nice copies. I hope I get a 9.8 out, at least one of them in there. We'll see about that. We got 136. And then lastly, in the Dark Phoenix, we got a really nice 137 right there that I have high hopes for. So those were all part of that John Byrne run. Oh, the Dark Phoenix run, I should say. I still have 141. That was the last John Byrne one in this run. I have, again, high hopes on this one, mostly because even though I own my 9.6, I do own a 9.0 signed Claremont version of this book as well that I was never happy with. I think that grade was poo-poo platter, and I wasn't happy with it. So I'm hoping to replace that in the PC at some point as well. And then the last X-Men book I've got from Claremont was, well, that's not true. The last X-Men book for the moment is 221, the first appearance of Mrs. Sinister. This is a very nice copy, hoping to get that 9.8, but this is a book right here that really has dropped in value. I think a 9.8 blue label is only about $200 right now, and I thought this was a very nice copy. I hope it at least gets that 9.8. We'll see about that. And then we go over to some of the other books, and then we'll swing back to the X-Men in a moment. So I got 2 very nice copies of Wolverine #1, the John Buscema run in 1988. One of these was a 9.6 reject years ago that I never did anything with. And I may just leave this as a raw copy. The other one, it was a very nice copy I picked up. Let me see if I've got it written down. Yeah. Got it from Infinity Comics for a really good price. And it is a spectacular, this one right here is a spectacular copy. And I know I've actually had a 9.8 of this signed by Claremont that actually sold pretty good. The whole idea is to do it again on these right here. And then the last Wolverine issue is issue number 10. The great Bill Sienkiewicz did this book right here. Picked this up at a little shop down in Norfolk, Virginia. Let me see. Called Amazing Fantasy. It was part of, I guess, about over 2 years ago. My wife and I did a vacation down, I guess, around January, February, down in around Virginia Beach, and we went to this little shop and ended up, they didn't have a lot of stuff there, but I tried to find some really decent books, and I thought this was a really nice copy. So I finally got around to getting that into the shop. Actually, I think I actually did clean and press this. Yeah, my notes say I've cleaned and pressed it, but it's been so long, I'll probably have to give it another press. But we'll see. Again, adding value to the book by adding Claremont's signature. And then we move over to some books that were signed by other people as well. This was a very nice copy of New Mutants #1. This I picked up at a local comic show just not that long ago actually, and it's a newsstand. And if you look on there, I've actually got Bob McLeod on there as well. He was at the show, and I will be doing a couple other books on Bob McLeod probably a little bit later. I'm not sure what point his video will show up in this series of videos that are coming out, but know that he did sign that at that exact same time in that video. And then we've got New Mutants #18. Of course, this is the first Demon Bear. I got 2 copies of that. Very nice copies. And I'll have to save these someday for Bill Sienkiewicz. And then we go over to some facsimiles that I had gotten signed previously by Michael Golden. And these are some Unknown Comics variations. You got a David Nakayama cover. And I'll wait to hopefully some point see David Nakayama again. And this is Avengers Annual #10. And if you look on there, it's a little hard to see everything, but you've got Chris's signature right there. You've got over here on the side is Michael Golden, and if you look down at the bottom, Al Milgrom. Al Milgrom did the front cover to this book, and even though it's much maligned, he's pretty famous for this cover. And so I got Al Milgrom again at the show as well, and you will see some of his video a little bit later as well. Michael Golden I had gotten at earlier shows this year and last year on this book, and the 2 additional copies I've got of that right there. And you may ask, why do I have multiples on some of these? Well, some of these are going to be for sale, and you guys will just have to check out my eBay store and my Shortbox page, or you can always just email me at collectorauctions@yahoo.com if you're ever interested in it. I'm not getting everything graded. In fact, I'm going to offer up a lot of the books you're going to see in these videos for sale as raws. So if you're interested, if you see anybody you like, just contact me one way or the other. And what did I say? I said I'd get back to the X-Men, but the reason I'm getting back to these particular X-Men's books right here is because I also have John Romita Jr., and he's coming up in the second video of this series, and I probably won't show these books again at that point, but we've got Claremont right up there, and we got JR right there. He is the co-creator of Dazzler. At least he's given credit in Wikipedia. I never knew this was a John Romita Jr. cover all these years. It took me years to realize that, even though his name is right over there. I always thought this was, originally I thought it was a Dave Cochran cover, to be quite honest, but it's not. Yeah, it's Terry Austin doing the inking though. But I got 2 copies of this, and what did I say earlier is that this is probably the lowest grade X-Men books, actually the lowest grade any book I gave Claremont at the show. These right here, I would be lucky if they're going to grade out at a 9.0, maybe a 9.2. And I did this completely to add value to these books right here. I probably paid a little too much. One of them's in for my PC, and I don't remember this one, but I know I probably paid too much for it when I bought it. I also picked up 193. This is the first appearance of Farstar. I can't say that right. In continuity, I believe. And you've got Romita artwork throughout the whole book on this, cover and interior. And then we kind of go back. I did get another facsimile. This is really nice. This is actually the first thing that Claremont signed, was this facsimile to X-Men 130. And it's a foil facsimile. You've got his signature right there. And John Romita Jr. actually, he wrote his name out on this one. So he signed it fully on that. All the other books were JR. But this was pretty good. I got this mostly because I really am a big believer in some of these facsimiles, especially if you get the signatures. You can have a nice, valuable piece. This is a book that probably will get graded at some point. And then I've got issue number 207. That's a really classic Romita Jr. X-Men. I was going to say Wolverine cover right there. And then lastly, from Claremont and John Romita Jr., the first appearance of Forge in X-Men 184. But guys, that is it. That is all the books I got Chris Claremont to sign, and a few from some other artists as well, and you will see those artists all in upcoming videos. I just probably will not pull these books back out again and show them to you again, because hey, if you're watching all of these, you're already going to see them. I'm not going to waste your time. But guys, definitely leave me a comment in the comment section below. Let me know what you think about the books I got signed, and if you actually went to HeroesCon, I'm probably going to ask that in every video. If you went to HeroesCon and you talked to me, definitely reach out, remind me. And I had a great time meeting everybody and talking with people. There were so many people there that had watched the channel, and that was super cool. It feels like you actually are doing something right out there and having an impact on people one way or the other. It's kind of cool. And I had a great time meeting everybody that I talked to. But I would love to know if I talk to you, just reach out. And if you enjoy this video and if you enjoy these right here, you got to reach out and just let me know by leaving me that comment. And if you did enjoy today's video, definitely give me a like, slap that subscribe, and click on that notification bell so you don't miss out on any of the episodes that are going to be coming up. And normally it's going to be Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, but I may start putting a few more episodes out because there's going to be a lot of these videos from HeroesCon, and I don't want to drag this out for a month. So I may be putting out multiple episodes on additional days too. You never know. Hit that notification bell so you won't miss it. All right, guys, I'm out of here. Have a great day. I'll see you for the next episode. Just remember, every comic has a story.